Hello, Abdul. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Thank you very much. If you spare me a few seconds, if anybody's arrived nice and early, we're just going to go live on the Empower Hour show very, very shortly.
Mhm.
Just setting it up. Thank you for being here nice and early, the team. Perfect. Right, so we'll go a bit live earlier. So this is the Empower Hour show, team. Thank you very much for being here on time and being nice and early. I know we connect with a large amount of audience across the globe in every single hemisphere across the globe. So we're so proud to have people from Fiji, from Africa's India, Pakistan, Europe, Slovakia, for example, even to Americas, and actually North America, Canada as well. So, very, very proud this evening. This is episode 78 of the Empower Hour show with the one and only Salam Radio here in Peterborough. I, myself, your host, is Sukhi Wahiwala. This evening, we are going to be introducing what I think is a bit of a powerhouse. And before we get into that, we'll go to some basic logistics. Please stay with us until the end. We've got until 8 o'clock, so 7 o'clock till 8 o'clock this evening. It's every week. This is your weekly installation of the Empower Hour show. Here at the Empower Hour show, our focus and version of the world is specifically to bring to you individuals who have achieved, landed in great expectancy of the world and actually service of the world, but individuals who have actually tried to help themselves through adversity and standing on their grounds to be I suppose you could say, a lovely example to the world so that others can actually follow as well. Today, we're not going to let you down in the slightest. We have Abdul Shakur, who is a young entrepreneur, and I mean this sincerely. He is a truly inspirational individual who has been through some serious adversities in life. He is an individual who today, well, I'll go today, he stands proud telling you that he has a whole academy in raising finance and funds and equity as per se, which we'll talk a bit later on. He as an individual is based in the Midlands, Midlands massive, all very, very good. And he's gone from being a homeless individual all the way through to standing his ground, being partnering and marketing a company with 20 million pounds worth of assets and raising 5 million in his own equitable way. He has today got thousands of clients around the world and in the UK where they raise equity capital for assets and property per se. And some of his clients, some of his individual new mentees have raised £750,000 just by following his tried and tested system. So I will, without further ado, want to really sincerely invite and welcome wholeheartedly to the Empower Hour tribe and the Empower Hour show. Abdul, welcome.
Thank you very much, Sukhi. I really appreciate the opportunity that you presented, and it's a pleasure to be on the show today.
Really, honestly, you are an inspiration to many. So, without further ado, we're going to get straight to it, if I can. Well, there's no holds back, I'm afraid. We're not going to hold back. It's an hour of power-packed information, so anybody who's listening, they're going to absolutely love this. So, Abdul, just a bit of a background conversation, if I may. Where are you actually from? Which city, born in England, that kind of thing?
I was born and bred in Birmingham. I grew up in a little area called Sparkbrook. Uh,
Barbara.
amongst all my Asian community, very proud of where I've grown up from, and I really appreciate where I am today.
Wonderful. And family-wise, what of how many? Have got any siblings at all?
I have three older brothers, two older sisters. I am the youngest of six.
So you're the
Um,
youngest and so am I. There we are. You see?
it's a true blessing.
It is, without a doubt. So you grew up, let's just put into context. You grew up in Sparkbrook, sorry, in Birmingham. So how was that for you? What's your schooling like? Did you have many friends? Were you a quiet sort of person, an introverted individual? Or were you extroverted and dreamt of standing on stage from day one?
I was never planned to be any level of of extrovert, but I naturally, due to my father putting me on stage and from a young age, I became extroverted. But as an individual, I was very introverted and shy.
And you mentioned your father. So your father put you on stage. I'm sure that's quite interesting for many people. So what was that about?
And so my father was an imam in the local masjid, and there were competitions that happened every single year. My dad put me on stage in front of the local masjids, and then you'd compete on a very national level, doing, funny enough, not English speeches, but Urdu speeches. Urdu was language that we spoke at home, so it was very sort of something that I had to learn a script and present it in the best way possible. That led me onto a stage in front of 2,000 people. I
What?
was, if I'm honest, going from 50 people to 2,000 people is a very big jump. But I remember walking off stage, literally sweating. Rather than sitting down, I ran straight to the toilet.
Honestly, I think that's acceptable. So you've gone from schooling and that kind of thing, from being what was it? What sort of age are you? 9, 10 years old, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I was between ages between 9 and 12 when I started public speaking, and at 12 I got the opportunity to speak on stage.
This is just beautiful. So hang on a second, the audience. I just wanted to get this clear, just so everybody understands that Abdul has been speaking on stage for many years, as you can work out. He doesn't. When I ask him his age later, you'll actually be surprised how young he truly is, and how so much of an inspiration he is for the young generation as a young entrepreneur himself. But you're talking about somebody who's an imam. Imam is a priest within the Islamic communities, and as a mosque specifically. And just so I can clarify for everybody who's a non-English, non-Asian sort of dialect speaking. So an imam is somebody who's very highly revered. So he's come from a really great lineage, who's stood his ground and had to recite passages mainly in front of people. So from being a smaller individual younger individual in the smaller crowds to 2,000 people, that's quite a step up. So if you don't mind asking about, how did that actually happen? How did you end up with 2K people in front of you?
I think it's a competitive street. So among my father and his friends and their sons and daughters, there was always this competition of, look at this so and so son. He's a doctor. He's great at public speaking. He's got an amazing voice, for example. And that was that level of competition. So it was like, okay, I had to live up to the expectation of, I had to be a great presenter, but also be able to achieve or be in a career that, for many would seem as comfortable and very successful.
Wow. Now, Abdul, I've known you for a number of years now, so I also know that you come across as a really tough guy, but you're a really warm-hearted individual, and I've had lovely conversations with you earlier and many other days as well. So, just as a clarity to myself, there's a journey here that we've had. I mean, today, obviously, of course, you help individuals. You're very well respected in an arena of teaching about the structure and strategy behind things. But how was school for you? Because there are people who are listening today. We have, would you believe, audiences from as young as 9, 10 years old who listen to this particular show. We're very proud of it. And so the question I ask yourself is, how was your school life for yourself? And then how did that kind of evolve into your teens?
I definitely was an academic. My father actually put me through tuition from a young age, so it was something that he invested in, even though he never had a lot of money. So I respect that. But I was never naturally an academic, and I was bullied in school. I didn't really enjoy it.
Oh,
So
wow.
I used to, skip school and go and do volunteering work, and that was where my passion was. I didn't get on with children my own age, so the first thing was, how can I surround myself around adults? And so volunteering was where I picked up all my skills. I was surrounded by people who I felt were like-minded individuals, but also with a view to make a difference. Growing up in a family where it was all about making a difference, from a religious point of view, for myself as an individual, I said, okay, there's got to be more people who are going through challenges in their lives, and how can I be of assistance, utilizing my skill set in some way, shape, or form.
That's just so beautiful. Even at a young age, I mean, if anybody here, if you just heard the fact that bullying, etc., if you have any challenges at all with bullying in your current life, whether it's workplace, whether it's at school, or any kind of domestic issues, please, you must reach out and try to get some help. It's not okay to be quiet and think there's something wrong with yourself. Please reach out to a school teacher, an elder, a family friend, and just be air and open. So just to clarify that for our broadcasting conversations. Abdul, thank you very much for sharing that, contention you had when you were earlier. Now, that within itself, you've just touched on something really beautiful there. A lot of individuals perceive that success within itself, within the Asian community, and I suppose the wider community as well, that success comes from, and we're not taking anything away from formal education, because being academic is very good as well. So what my question is yourself is that a lot of individuals perceive that academics is the only route to success. Now, I'm not suggesting that it isn't or it is. I'm just saying, how was it for you? You said that you didn't really, you took a different journey and you wanted to give back to society. But how did that affect your schooling and working in that sort of environment, please?
Uh, I think I did okay academically.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say I was bad academically. I was, because of the memory of memorizing the Quran, or the speeches from a young age. It was very much a case of I was great at remembering things and putting down on paper. But I realized that it all depended on my teachers. If I had an amazing teacher that I enjoyed working with, I found the subject even more enjoyable to study. So it was a very much a case of sometimes, just something that I enjoyed doing or something that I was passionate about was what I was interested in, whether it was academic or not so academic either.
That's such spot on information. Now, if I can relate that to my own children, they prospered, within that environment. They had a teacher who stimulated them and had some kind of connection with them. Is that right?
Absolutely. One of my favorite subjects, aside from the whole business aspect, was actually science because of my teacher,
Ah.
which I actually did better grades than I thought I did. And that was a subject I actually enjoyed doing in school, even though people say, oh, you're a business person, your business is always your interest. Why did you have business studies and why wasn't maths your strong subject? And I was like, no, none of that was my strong subject. It was actually what science.
And we also know that obviously with science, obviously you've got quantum science and physics and that kind of thing as well. So it really shows through your language because when we all know that you actually mentor individuals, so you understand that spiritual element as well. So can I ask another question if you don't mind? So you've created some formal understandings of education and bits and bobs in the sense of you've trained at certain key things. Was that, I'm sharing this to anybody who's thinking that they want to start studying or take a different version of the world. How did you sort of like acquire these extra skills?
A lot of the time I spent through voluntary work. And again, this is something that, I remember from growing up in an Asian community, they were like, you shouldn't be working for free sort of thing. That was the mindset around volunteering work. Well, I saw this as an opportunity to not only acquire new skills, but meet new people, open up doors and create more opportunities for myself. So as well as the voluntary aspect of me wanting to make a difference, I
Mhm.
always thought, okay, I can also learn something new and really enhance my skill set in order for me to achieve something, wherever it may lead. I don't know where it's going to lead. I don't go in with a particular agenda, but I just go with an open mind and see where it actually takes me.
That they're pearls of wisdom that I'm not sure that you know how powerful that could be for anybody who's listening, who's probably having a little challenge in their career, even just that trust element of serving others, isn't it?
Absolutely. And talk about academic, I plan on going back to uni now. Even myself and my business partner, we plan on going studying back, knowing that we now have this understanding or passion of what we want to do more long term. And so we're going back into education. So I never say education is a bad thing by any shape or form. It's actually a beautiful thing, especially if you find something that you're extremely passionate about and you want to pursue it long term.
Brilliant. So it comes to the stage where we, at this particular point, Abdul, we sometimes ask people about what we classify as a life-defining moment, something that actually changes your fabric, your resonance, the fact that your brain just opens up and realizes that you're present in that moment, that life is real. Now, I know you had a conversation around earlier when you had a little bit of a scenario with your father. Would you care to just share a little bit about that? Because one of the core things that I take from your story, which I wanted to bring you, it's why I wanted you to on the show, is that stint of being homeless, and that's very rare within the Asian community. So it'd be really wonderful, and thank you very much for being so open as well. By the way, if you could just share some of that story and anything that was what we call
So
empowerment.
before I dive into the homeless side of things, I want to tell people that I was prematurely born and I can't grow any muscle on my legs, which means growing up there was hospital runs and all the challenges that came with that.
Can I just beg your pardon? Just repeat that again. It'll be slightly delayed.
Sorry, so I was prematurely born. A lot
Prematurely.
of people
Okay, good. Yeah.
don't. A lot of people don't know this, but I was prematurely born and I can't grow any muscle on my legs, which meant that growing up, my family wanted me to have a comfortable career by where I'm sitting behind a desk and I'm not working anything, from a physical point of view. I loved cricket. I had a passion for cricket. I wanted to play in cricket teams, and I was never allowed to pursue that passion with the fear that, something might ever happen to me. And I always lived with this fear. And this was an insecurity
Mhm.
growing up as well, because I thought I'm not like everyone else because of this, because of this, people might call it disability. It wasn't a disability, but it was something that held me back from feeling confident, or recognizing that I am still capable of achieving something.
Mm. So that Abdul really, really inspires me to ask the next question. It's sort of like a mini question, if you don't mind. You said that disability, but I know you're very positive in your thought process. So did you find that something like having a disability with your muscles in your legs, as you said, you couldn't grow muscles in your legs, and that is astounding to me to even know that you were in that sort of space yourself, an absolute evidence that physicality and things of that sort of nature don't stop anybody if you have the determination and grit and hard work ethic. Um, did you find that having that disability within your legs and muscle growing, that actually it semi-focused you as well?
Absolutely, because I wanted to also prove to myself, but to the next generation or to people around me, that you could go out and achieve something, and that gave me that sense of purpose. I know the reason why people say, "Why did you get into business?" And I say to people, it's because growing up there wasn't a role model that I could look up to, and I just took that responsibility on myself to feel like I want to be that person that says, an example for people to say, there is a young person that's gone out there and achieved something amazing.
That is just brilliant. So you truly have become that role model for a generation to follow, in essence. And in some cases, you may be a lot younger than individuals, but people of my generation maybe even can consider themselves to see you as a role model, because they would say, "Hang on, if this gentleman over here has done this, Abdul himself, why can I not? Why can I not?" Yeah. So I love that ethic. So has something like that ever actually? Um, have you ever worked with individuals where they've actually turned around? Because I know you worked in the charitable sector. Did you ever actually transfer this kind of I'd call it the bug of achievement? Did you ever transfer that into somebody and see it reverse back to you?
Absolutely. There's even till today, we invite young people into our offices just to give them exposure into a totally different environment. One of the key things I say to most young people I meet today, whether I'm in schools or whether I'm in colleges, I say to people, especially even parents, it's like,
Mm.
give young people exposure to different environments. And even in Birmingham, most people don't know about the Colmore side of town, where all the professional service firms are. Most people don't even visit there. Some of my friends I grew up with still they haven't gone to London after 10 years. So it
Right.
was a case of, getting myself, giving myself exposure to different environments and meeting young people along the way, just taking them out of the community and seeing them flourish, because a lot of the time, this is the first time someone's actually believed in it. And that's sometimes all it takes. It's that just level of belief within them, and they can run. They can literally run. And I've seen young people come back to me within 12 months' time and said, I've built a business, and I've now gone from, this is opportunity that you presented me, or this advice that you gave me has really helped me transform my life around. And I've built a business now that I'm making a living wage from, or now I'm making a profit to sustain myself. Bear in mind, there's a stat a couple of years ago by where only 4% of 18 to 35-year-olds made a profit or a living wage from their business. So 96% of people struggle within the business environment. And just to see a young person go from just an idea to even sustaining themselves was for me quite a humble experience, because it just showed me that this is something that's really possible, and should reaffirm things for me.
That is tremendous. I'm not joking seriously here, Abdul. It's an absolute pleasure having you on the show. And I'm going to say something else to yourself as well, that that's actually a misinterpretation of most people, where they don't even think that just by taking a person into a space, another environment, another role model, being able to visualize it, being able to see it, and actually just being exposed to another version of the world, because we may have we may not have the role models in our life that are achieving. And it's not saying anybody's worth that life is better or worse than another, but what you're doing is a distinct service. Thank you very much for that. Um, if I can ask the question again with reference to you yourself, when something, let's say a life defining moment, something that made you really take everything more seriously and realize that this is it, we're
Mm.
present in that moment. Was there that kind of a feeling for you?
Absolutely. I remember being homeless at the time and sneaking into the back of a lounge and just sleeping there overnight. And when the owner came out and said to me, "Look, I can't give you a home. I can't pay you right now. But what I can give you is you can continue sleeping in the shop front. You
Mm.
can you can work for me, and I'll pay you in food, for example." And while I was doing that, I was running my business at the same time. So a 9 to 5 running a business and going from 5 o'clock to working in the shisha lounge till 4 o'clock in the morning. And that's what kind of led me on to being homeless, because again, going back to my father not wanting me to struggle, when I came home late at night, he automatically had this idea that I was up to no good.
Mm.
And I was just chilling, and I was just going out and doing the wrong things, because no sun is out after 12 p.m. But I really had this vision. I really had this idea that you do need to work hard, and I'm going to do whatever it takes, even if I have to physically go above and beyond to be able to go create something. So that's what led me to become homeless. It was that drive, but I didn't realize how much it affected my family and the relationships around me.
At that time. Wow. So hang on a second. So just to clarify something, if I can, that you undertook two jobs at a tender age. Yeah.
Mhm.
What sort of age was that?
I was 16.
16. So at 16 years old, and that's an inspiration within itself. And my own son's 15 years old. So you were basically undertaking a day job in the sense of working on a business and an idea and helping structures and charities, and then in the evening you'd work at a shisha lounge, which is
Mhm.
basically a lounge where they smoke shisha. And I think you're saying that the assumption of your dad was that you were chilling in not doing anything specific because you would come home late in the morning and in essence sleep where other people would be waking up and then going back to work and somewhere else and then coming back home and then going shooting straight back out. Wow. So that miscommunication, if anybody else is facing something like that, it's that important to share with your parents the journey that you're actually taking, isn't it?
Absolutely. Like even today, this is more recently. My siblings, kept asking, "What is he up to? How does he make how does he make money?" Sort of thing. And I remember even recently, I said I invited one by one all my siblings into the office, and I showed them my board, which is to the left of me, and I said to them, "This is what I'm up to. This is how it's structured. This is how I get paid. This is how it works." And I literally try and say, "Okay, let's probe them into even if they don't do business for themselves, just sharing the ideas and sharing the knowledge." I remember there was a moment where my whole family started to respect me of the business. For a very long time, they just saw me as doing nothing. But there was one moment where my brother said to me, he understood I did some level of marketing at the time, and he said, "Why don't you hop on a call with my friend who's running a business and just provide him some level of advice?" And when
Wow.
I when I came onto the call, I provided as much value as I could, and that's when it hit home for him. He realized that, oh, he does know what he's talking about. He does know what he's doing. And that message kind of went home back to my parents. Oh, he really does know what he's doing. And so sometimes it does take, a lot of time that we have this assumption that our parents don't understand what we do.
Mm.
And sometimes we need to approach it with a bit of love, understand that they're concerned for our safety, and literally be able to then go out there and say, "Okay, why don't I show you what I do? Why don't I give you a bit of background?" My father was quite proud of the fact that I still, did some level of public speaking today. And I sometimes would go home and I would show him videos of me public speaking and let him listen, or I let my family translate for him, or something along the lines of that, just for him to see that
Mm.
there's a level of respect.
So you're telling me that your skill that your father actually honed in you um, did pay off as well, and the fact that he's reflected and seen that, so he may have seen the error of his ways as well.
Absolutely, and don't get me wrong, there will always be ups and downs in terms of the
Naturally.
decisions you make, and even especially if you're entrepreneurial, you are very different to the average person or the rest of your family. So it's acknowledging that you are different to all these individuals,
Mm.
but still your parents still love you, and
But
you
still,
still, and they are still your parents. They may not ever understand what you do, but still you need to show appreciation and love in different ways. And that's a hard lesson that, and it's only when I moved away and started to create my own living for myself did I understand how much my parents did for me growing up, and how much they went above and beyond just to even do the basics of today. We don't appreciate the fact that they put a roof overhead, they put food on the table, they wash your clothes, they do all these things. And sometimes we take those things for granted, especially growing up. A lot of people will realize in their 30s and 40s, and they're married and the kids, and they go back and they reminisce of the old days of how much their parents did for them. And I'm saying, and my message to young people is, don't forget that today, and don't take that for granted today.
that's a beautiful message, and I'll tell you now. There's a sort of kind of like you could say a meme, and it's like a screenshot of a phone where mum. It just says mum, and it's a calling number. You can either answer or cancel it, but it's just a screenshot of mum calling, and there's a lovely caption straight after it saying, "Answer the call." And respect and be so grateful that you've got that phone call, that this person's calling you, because there'll be a day when you long for it. In other words, when the
Mm.
person's passed on and moved into the light. And by no means am I wishing upon your parents, and may they live a long and healthy life. So can I just veer back? Thank you for after such a great message. In significance, I mean, with reference to being homeless. Now that doesn't seem, it's very extreme. It's an extreme situation. So your father felt you were not really performing, and you were not necessarily applying yourself, and you were being a bit of a layabout, supposedly.
Mm.
So can I just touch a little bit on what it was like to be homeless before we move on into another category?
I remember waking up, and you don't have warm water in these places. So I remember washing my face and not feeling like I've washed my face, because you're still very much dazed out or sleepy. It's like when you walk in and people say you look like you're half asleep. It's that feeling, but constantly, even though I've washed my face and I've looked after myself, you still had that feeling inside you like you've just woken up.
Hmm.
And a lot of the days would go by where you don't notice the time, the day, what's going on. You even block out any emotion from yourself, and you stop feeling things as well. So it gets to the stage where you completely just lose yourself in that process. And it's only, and I realized this up until a point where I was trying to run a business, and I went to pitch a CCTV company to manage their social media for them. And back then social media wasn't a great thing, so charging this £30 a month, and that was the price I was at the age. And I remember walking out the meeting, like I was nowhere near present. There was I
Ah,
couldn't perform at my best. I wasn't presenting my best self, and
so
that's when I realized I had to do something about it. I walked home to my sister's house, and I said, "Can I have a shower?" She said, "Why don't I just take you home?" And that's when
wow.
I went home and tried to rebuild the relationship back with my parents. But even till today, I don't think my parents still don't know about the challenges that I went through in life.
Mm.
And I even tried to hide that. I said to my parents, I was staying at a friend's house, and I didn't let them ever feel that guilt or regret
My
about
goodness.
what being homeless.
So hang on a second. You were obviously really homeless. So you slept in your shisha lounge where you were working. So the gentleman who owned that at the time was really helpful to you. You said gave you food and kept you watered and that, but you had to work hard for it. But then what's really significant, you were still struggling with your business as well, running in social media. You went and physically arranged a meeting with somebody and turned up there and didn't even feel as though you were awake, because you'd kind of like so powerfully said thank you very much, that your days were melding together. They were like it was though you were awake or asleep. It didn't matter. It was all the same. You'd lost track of the day or anything of that sort of nature, but you did turn up. You kind of washed your face up because you had no showering equipment, but you just couldn't focus. You came out feeling as though you were just not applied. You just felt lost. That's such a beautiful, powerful, hard hitting point, that sometimes we can feel lost obviously you had the extremity of not being homed or housed in some way, but and not a secure sort of shelter. But some people are working through life like that as well. They just turn up and they're not necessarily applying themselves. And we'll talk about that a bit later to show what you've actually done to help other people. But there's a key question I just want to ask here. Your sister was instrumental. You found it within yourself to go and speak to her and say, can I just shower in the house? I said, I don't feel right. And I don't accept this unpresent self. Is that right? So then, and then she turned around at the goodness of her heart. I mean, that's, first of all, that act is amazing. And then she took you home and said, look, why don't you just go home? Did it sort of like, did you sort of like just fit straight back in, or was it still?
Funny enough, I remember when the guys that I met at the Shisha Lounge, it was his wedding. So I literally went home,
Mm,
showered, walked back out with the suit on, and continued as if nothing had happened.
my
Just
goodness.
so my parents don't ever feel like something was wrong with me or something had ever happened to me. Because I know how much our parents worry about children, and I wasn't I'm not a father just yet, but just from seeing the pain that it can cause a family, or mom
Mm.
or father, or mom or dad, I think I didn't want them to bear that.
I'm blown away by that. So I hope that Uncle G and Auntie G are listening today, and they can understand how much of a supportive son that you are, not only to yourself but to them, but to the rest of the world as well. So I think that's such a beautiful conversation. Thank you very much for having an open heart to share that with the audience today. This is the Empower Hour show. We have just been unbelievably, in essence, serenaded with knowledge by a young Abdul Shakur, who is an investor, a fundraiser, and a trainer in the arena of asset wealth accruing. And we'll be talking very closely with him in a moment about that next. But if you've just joined us, this is episode 78 of the Empower Hour show with Salam Radio, the Inspired Tribe, and myself, Sukhi Wahiwala. You must scrub back to this YouTube channel. Please scrub back and watch how Abdul has shared his honesty about him being homeless and having a challenge in life with his relationship with his father, and how he's trying his best to bring it back together. But more importantly, been self-respecting enough that people have actually seen him in his entirety and his skill, as well as a knowledged individual sharing. So thank you very much if you've just joined us. This is the Empower Hour once again. Abdul, I just want to touch base with yourself. Thank you. Today, in this current world, I know you from the scene of education and training. You have some mentees, you have many mentees, but there was a journey just before this. You were a marketing specialist. So you were in the arena of social marketing, social media, marketing and structure. So how did that happen from marketing through to your current being a trainer investor? Please share your thoughts.
So I was doing marketing for a client, and this client was just someone who was running a very successful empire, but he didn't have the time to do marketing, but understood the value of it. And so I decided to build something called London Property Community. I started off initially in hotel lobbies running meetups, to then partnering with NatWest, and having 10,000 plus members. And that's something that grew
Wow.
very organically without a penny spent on advertising. And and when I came to my quarterly review meeting with him, he sat me down and he said, "Look, Abdul, you've been a huge part of my success recently, because not only have you built me a brand, but also you've helped me raise investment. Why don't you come on board, and I will give you a directorship. I will give you shares within the development. I will just go out there and raise money for me."
Wow.
At this point in time, there was no system in place. He was having 150 calls a day, running from site to site, really challenging, trying to bring everything together. That's the life of a developer.
It is.
um, and then having researched, I realized that some of the bigger developers like the Barrow Towns and all these bigger companies out there, they have investor relations departments. And
Mm.
that's where I found a niche. I said, okay, what if I create a system utilizing the sales and marketing ability to really help them raise investment, but then also look after those investors, and keep them and retain them for a long period of time. And that system really worked well for this developer, and allowed me to continuously raise money, knowing that a lot of other developers might be going through this. I thought, okay, why don't I do this for other developers? And when I researched the term private equity, it was something that was only a very closed environment where these very successful corporate individuals raise tens of millions of pounds. I'm like, okay, what about the smaller developers? What about the average individual that invests in property? How can they leverage this knowledge in order for them to build a portfolio, or for them to raise money for the developments? And that's where I pieced together a system by which has effectively worked for not just the business that I was working in, but also for my clients and my mentees today.
Wow. So now, just to clarify for the audience as well, just to clarify that private equity as a fund, it's a place where you put your money into to get a fixed rate return on investment. And some of them can work in the asset structures of being in property, which is real estate, and some in many other versions like even trade and stocks. So just to clarify something, that your client, when you purchase a property, you can either purchase a property or finish a development or buy a development, investment type of thing, with bank money, your own money, which is the traditional route where you have a deposit and you have a bank loan, or another way of doing it is basically putting your own money in and actually getting possibly investor money in as well. So it's kind of like creating the fund is a bit like having your own bank in essence, but with very, very strict regulations of FCA around that particular thing, around the particular coordinations. So that is brilliant, by the way. So what a lovely transition. So Abdul, I've got a question to yourself. So if you don't mind, you helped raise capital. Now that was a big fund. So I can remember reading your bio. That's like you raised nearly £5 million for this person. Now that's no small feat. Okay. So when you did something like this, I mean, how did it occur to you? I know you said you were talking about homes and you saw the investor relationships. How did the system come to you?
I think I've always tried to simplify things in life, and not just in business, but in life in general. By if I can create a step-by-step process that I can take someone through, and at each part of that process, if I can somehow improve that process, I know that the end product will be pretty amazing. So when I looked at the current, people, especially in sales, people go out there and they will try and they will just sell. And that's just, they'll network, they'll try and close the deal, but there's no real format or structure around it. And being in marketing, I realized that you do need a level of structure. But how can I took that same knowledge and I thought, how can I apply that to investors? And so I just looked at that model and thought, okay, if I can help people understand the power of building a brand within the property market, or building a community within the property market, I know that not only will they attract investors, but they will also be able to manage those investors and continue to get referrals. And rather than, even as a normal property investor, rather than just being a property investor, why don't you position your business as an investment company and really have a corporate image? And I think that's where I saw a lot of people miss out on. They don't represent themselves as a larger organization. And so my job was to not only position themselves as a larger organization, but also to help them, have a step-by-step process by which effectively works, that tried and true method that works really well, that can help them get them the result of having an investor and taking them to the stage where those funds are in their account.
Perfect, beautiful. So now, with something like this, it's something I'm share because I want to understand. You've also created an academy where you teach other people. But before we go to that stage, are there any specifics that an individual would like to raise capital, or would like to invest their capital? Yeah. So are there any pitfalls? I mean, FCA. Yeah. So can you explain how what regulations around this and what pitfalls are there, because you do it clean and tidily, you're above board, you're an absolute professional in that game. So my question to yourself is, if somebody's listening today, they want to create their own fund, and you would never poo-poo them because you train people to do that. And secondly, if somebody wants to just not hold it themselves and just wants to invest the money, what could they do with you? And how could that actually work? What was the pitfalls?
Absolutely. One of the key things that I always say to people that, especially if you're marketing an investment opportunity, there's only a certain amount of percentage you can, advertise. So it's only, I think you can mention up to a certain percentage. And also, you also always need to mention in any marketing material that your capital is at risk. Even though you might be
Yeah.
providing a secure investment opportunity, you still need to mention that the capital is at risk. And that's something that's, FCA is something that they're quite strict on. The other aspect of property, especially if they wanted to invest with someone like myself, I also look at diversifying and in trying to create a minimum risk model. And I understood there's a lot of Muslim investors now. There's a lot of people that want to secure their investments longer in different ways. And so I don't just invest now in investment opportunities. I don't just provide just a property investment. We also provide something called a care home investment. And that care home investment is backed by not just the property itself, but also by the revenue the business generates, which is then backed by the local authority that is providing the contract. So again, there's now your business is not only your investment is not only secured by the asset, but it's also secured by a contract and other sort of revenue streams. And for me, and especially for the Muslim investors out there that don't want to deal with any level of interest or don't want any sort of loan attached to their investment, they call it a Sharia compliant. This
Sharia.
also, a care home is also a very Sharia compliant method. And so we attract a lot of international Muslim investors from Dubai, UAE, but also from local Muslim business owners that want to then invest without any level of interest or loan involved.
Wow. So not only do you raise the capital, but you're helping through elderly care, but you're also offering a Sharia compliant process. So that's very unique for yourself and the fund. Could I just go a little bit further ahead and say, so you've also got an academy where you help people, and you've had some really great case studies of individuals who are raising like £750,000 in such quick asset time. There's a lot of young individuals who are listening today, and maybe they want to get into what you're trying to do, or even seek some form of coaching, mentoring from yourself, or even do a training and then be gone. So how can you tell us a few case studies? How have you been working with individuals and how they raise capital?
Absolutely. One thing I always say to people: there is no one size fits all model. And that's the first thing I say to every person I come across. You can go and learn information that's free online, but you're in a very different situation. You're in a very different position from an asset point of view. You might have a different outcome or different goal in life. So just take the information with a pinch of salt that you learn online and say, okay, how can it be then tailored and reviewed to me? So in terms of the people I work with, they all come to me with a very different approach. So I take the foundation of what I offer and say, let me tailor this to you and hold your hand throughout that process.
Wow.
And some of the mentees are really young individuals. Some of them have got portfolios of 14 to 15. Some of them are even developers, very broad across all ages and all experiences. And they all come to me with a different goal. I've had even other mentors join the academy who then want to learn how to move to the next stage, or even just learn how to raise money, because it's not something that's currently being taught effectively in a very professional manner. And so that's what I take people through. In terms of some of the results, some of my mentees have gone to raise anything between 250,000 all the way to £750,000 within the 3-month time frame, and some of them have
Wow.
continued to build a portfolio within the year of just working with me. And I'm not one of those individuals that just says, here's a bit of information and off you go. I love that hand-holding process. I love being able to, I say to my mentees, I say, the more you can bug me, the more you'll get out of me. So don't feel
Yeah.
free to call me as and when you need me. And that's the relationship I have. And a lot of people might think that, I do this just for the monetary. I'm in the investment world because it's the best way for someone to become wealthy. For me, I'm doing this for the bigger picture. And my bigger picture is to build entrepreneurial schools within local communities and really go and give back and say, young people, you have no excuse, because now I'm building something which is, you will have the resources, the skills, the contacts, and even the investors to come to you and provide you that opportunity for you to go out there and succeed. So regardless of what your background is you can go out there and succeed. And that's, that is for me, my bigger purpose in life.
The main focus, yeah. That is so amicable and such an honor, because not only are you benefiting the world through tithing, zakat, seva, basically giving back to society, but you're also in essence, you're teaching a trade which is very hard to get into. So a question to yourself a little bit, if you don't mind. So if somebody was to take a course with yourself, I mean, what kind of course could I take with you if I was a customer of yours and I wanted to raise capital, or I wanted to take a shift and really loved what you're up to? As you said, that adage you put in there for bug me as much as you want, the more you bug me, the more you get, kind of thing. What are the courses that are available to them?
So I run a one-to-one mentoring program, which lasts a year. The first 3 months, we literally run a weekly call. Some people, post-COVID, they'll be able to come to the office, but currently it's everything over Google Meet, where I sit with them with Google Meet, and then we have a call every week, and sometimes even 2 calls a week, depending on how much they need me. So, and this goes on for a year. And you literally have me for a full year period. But not only that, you get access to a group among other individuals that are also at a very similar stage to you, but also you have a bonus of a pack that people can then have access to, which has brochures already created for you that you can then copy. It has messaging scripts by which you can utilize to send to investors and how to tailor them. There's guidance and other material out there that I've created for people. So really giving people everything that I have, without holding back and without saying, oh no, go and buy this afterwards.
Come and buy more money with me. Come and spend more money and I'll give you the next course.
Absolutely. It's just literally one thing and you will get everything from me. But I work with you every day for a full year. I do say to people, I'm quite proud of the fact that every single one of my clients has got the results within the first 3 months. And that's something that I will push you and I hold you accountable towards.
That's brilliant. And it's not, I assume it's not just you, because I know you're involved in other aspects like retail and stuff like that sort of nature, so, manufacturing food. So my question to yourself is that if somebody wanted to get hold of you per se, how would they do that, Abdul?
I'm pretty accessible. They can either email me or they can go onto my Instagram. I'm a guy that believes in, no matter how successful I have, I will always be accessible. So if they can go onto my Instagram, follow me, message me, I will respond and I will jump on a call.
Could you repeat your Instagram, please, so you can spell it out so we can see?
Absolutely. So it's Abdul Shakur London. So that's ABDUL, Abdul Shakur as in SHAKUR, and London, which is spelled LDN.
Okay.
So
LDN.
London for sure. So if people like to follow me or even just comment or message me, I'm happy to respond and even happy to jump on a call, just to even provide some value to you or point you in the right direction, not with any view for you to buy my mentoring program, just to even have a conversation or even to just have a call with people.
Beautifully amicable, and it's such in service of others, so well done. And if they're not because we have an older capture as well within these shows, the actual show itself is it's very, very well received across the globe. So my question to yourself is if somebody wants to get hold of you via email or phone call or something, is there any kind of office they can contact, or is there an email account?
Absolutely. So they can either email me at Abdul@Shakur Investments. That's SHAKUR investments.com, or they can type my name into LinkedIn, Abdul Shakur, linkedin.com/Abdul Shakur, and they can connect with me on LinkedIn as well if there are professionals that are willing to invest or that are looking for more support in that arena.
And it could be just somebody sitting there with some money that they want, thinking, what can I do with this? I mean, at the moment, banks are really low, so funds are on the rise at the moment. We understand that and respect that. Now, with this, there comes a share of responsibility. So the assurances are there, the asset structures there. And by the way, today's been brilliant. I hope everybody's thoroughly enjoying our time here with Abdul. So you've got the assurity. Now, what in the fail safes, for example, if the money could be lost, is at risk, etc. But how are you confirming? I mean, for example, are you actually developing it yourself, or are you becoming the fundraiser for established developments? Because that is something I'm understanding.
There's 2 aspects. Originally, I started off working with established developers or established care providers, but recently we launched our own care company in the last 2 years, which is myself and my business partner, and we've accomplished £250,000 profit within the last 9 months, and we continue to expand with the contracts that we have, and that's something that we're now looking for investors to help us to grow and to really take to that next level. So not only are there opportunities with the experienced developers or the experienced care providers, but also we also have opportunities within ourselves that we also deliver.
Lovely. Stunning. What a great conversation. I can't believe that we're running so fast. I told you it would go quick, didn't I? And you've hardly even touched and scratched the surface. So I'm sitting and I'm asking you a question in my brain. We get really close to people. This is the Empowerment Hour. It's about showing people that normal, humble individuals can become successful in such a short time. And I'm going to share with the audience because I don't think they realize that you're around mid-20s. Is that right?
Yep, I'm 26.
26 years old. So such a tender age of 26 years old being so well established. So that's so well done on behalf of all of us as well. Abdul, I'm going to ask you a question. We get to a stage where in life, and you're such a young lad, mind my French, that you probably still haven't thought about this, but I have a sneaky suspicion that you're quite a deep fellow. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit and I'm going to ask you a question. So this is a time when I ask you about your legacy. Legacy is something that you're going to leave beyond yourself. Yes, it's something you're going to leave on this earth in this existence that you're going to leave running without you. So my question to yourself is, I'm going to put in, it's a bit of a challenging question, I do apologize, but we're not inspiring anything to come forward with this, but I'm going to say, I'm going to give you an epitaph, and an epitaph being something that's going to represent you post when you're in the ground, when you're buried. So the question would be, and this really makes one think as a guest as well, here lies, and I'm going to ask you just to finish the sentence off, here lies Abdul Shakur, the man who, I'm going to put you on the spot, I do apologize, but I don't really. What would your legacy be? Here lies Abdul Shakur, the man who.
The man who opened doors, empowered and connected the next generation.
Wow. That's a drop the mic moment, I'm afraid. Love it. Absolutely stunning. So the man who opened doors, empowered, and connected the next generation. Mm-hmm. Wow. Love it. So what does that mean to you?
My sense of purpose has always started from, not just myself, but the people my age or the next generation coming through. And one of the key things that, a lot of young people come to me and they say the biggest challenge in life is how do we open these doors for success in life and in business and in whatever realm that they want to do well in. And so the first thing I always realize, how can we open doors? Not everybody is someone that can go out and open doors. I had to certainly go through my own struggles. So I always say to people, if I can open doors for people, that's something that I definitely want to do. I think from an empowerment perspective, I know what it's like to not have someone believe in you or feel like a lone wolf or someone that's just in his own corner, in his own world. And I just want to be able to empower to say, there is someone that believes in you. And lastly, connected, because I feel as though, we're in a world with the social media and there's so much information, there's so much overwhelm. I want people to be connected, not only within themselves, but the people around them and, get back into touch with their religion, get back into touch with spirituality, with business, with their family, with their relationship within themselves. So I feel like a huge part of that is that connection.
You've blown my brain. I'm sitting there thinking that is so amicable, deep, and powerful. And and all of us here on the Inspire Tribe and Salam Radio, we truly wish you well along this journey. I'm going to ask you another question. So we have these situations, Abdul, sometimes within our life where life becomes a little bit of a challenge. It's not always a bed of roses and easy to flow. Support, community, these are all very important parts. But one part of oneself should be a self pick-me-up. Something that takes your own responsibility to say, okay, I need to shine here. I need to stand up now. So sometimes we use a certain thing like a wisdom quote or something that really buzzes you and switches you on in life. So my question to yourself is, if the audience was here tonight, as they are, listening, what wisdom quote gets you in a pick-me-up state if you're having a dark moment?
I think it's natural for everyone to go through a level of anxiety and have that personal battle within themselves. So for me, it comes from a place of gratitude. So my wisdom quote would be, as long as you have a roof over your head and food on the table, life is a blessing. So go out there and achieve what you want in the world.
That quote within itself, as long as you have a roof over your head, food on your table, and I suppose you could say family and security in your life, it's so powerful and self-explanatory. But what does it mean to you? Because you've been through those challenges, haven't you, in life?
I think we can get so caught up with the pressure of success and the responsibility of even being a human in society. And I feel like we forget that, we live in, especially for those listeners that are in the UK, we do live in a developed country where, the world is our oyster and we have so much opportunity, especially with social media. Just now we were able to communicate with millions across the world. And, we sometimes take that for granted. And we sometimes, we put pressure on ourselves that we need to be someone. But sometimes it's okay, as long, let's look back to basics. Our parents came into this country and our forefathers, they came here to survive. And we don't have that challenge. We don't have that sense of responsibility anymore because we've got access to everything from a few clicks of a finger. So, now you don't need to click a finger. You can use your Face ID now. But literally it's we take that for granted. So the fact that we've got a roof overhead and food on the table reminds me that everything is going to be okay, and that actually I am now in a position, regardless of what this outcome that I'm worrying about, that it doesn't really matter in the end.
That it'll be fine. Abdul, a lot of people talk like that, but you have evidenced the fact that you actually have lived that because of the fact that you're standing there and you've been homeless. You've been in a situation where you don't know night and day. You don't even know the possibilities of oneself. You've lost your, in essence, identity. What you were talking about earlier on being homeless. If anyone's just joined us, please scrub back and enjoy and be inspired. So this holds for me personally a lot more validation when somebody says that this is, having the humility of saying a home, a roof over my head, food on the table. And I'm sure you understand that you will be touching hearts today. You will be speaking to people. This has truly been inspiring to hear such a young individual create an empire around of influence and of security and of fundraising as well. And I wish you all the best, Sukhi Wahiwala, as your friend, and I wish you all the best in future successes and endeavors. On behalf of the Salam Radio Peterborough app and the Peterborough radio station, I'd like to thank you, the inspired tribe who are listening avidly across the globe, the people who follow myself with gratitude as an influencer, and myself, Sukhi Wahiwala. I'd like to thank you so very much for being our guest, our 78th guest here on the Empower Hour show.
Thank you so much for the opportunity once again. I'm grateful and humbled to be on the show, and thank you for everyone that's tuning in.
Thank you very much again. And for everybody else who's tuned in, this is the Empower Show. What we do is we find what we deem as ordinary individuals who have achieved extreme achievements within their life, had faced adversities, have re-empowered themselves to help others to grow their lives, whether they come from any walk of life. So we hope that you keep a support towards this particular program called the Empower Hour Show, live every Tuesday UK time between 7 o'clock p.m. and 8 o'clock in the evening. I will see you in the next episode. Thank you very much.